Welcome back to the Randin podcast with Raffy and Chandra. Hooray!
Yay.
This is our very first repeat guest. So this is Dr. Antony Rapisarda from OrthoDx. Welcome back.
Hey guys, how are you? It's been a while.
Welcome. Good to have you back.
So as we were discussing just before we started, it's been 3 years to the day, almost to the day that we...
I think we did it 3 years ago, 22nd and 22.
Yeah, I mean, wow. So it has been 3 years since we last spoke.
Mm.
I just thought, I was going to do a little bit of a spiel, but then I thought, probably best if you just do it yourself because you have, like last week spoke, you had just started OrthoDx, which is a diagnostic company, but I think you'll do a better explanation of what it does than I will.
Yep.
Lots has changed. So I just thought we'd spend the first little bit just catching up. So
sounds great. Well,
yeah, so
I suppose the easiest way to go back and look at where we were 3 years ago was to think about we had this idea of building this diagnostic company that used PCR-based sort of host response genomic research. It was a great idea at the time, to sort of think about how we could look at the immune system's response in real time to figure out if a patient in orthopedics, which is, what I spent my time training in, going to be delivering a deliberate response towards an infectious or non-infectious pathway. And so, I think when we talked last time, we were saying, this is a great idea. We think we found this thing that shows that in an infectious scenario, the body has this particular gene set that it turns on. In an inflammatory, it has a completely different gene set that it turns on. They're not related to each other. They just work independently. And we've tried to artificially smush it together. And so 3 years later, we did artificially smush it together and it does work, which is exciting. So we're currently going to market from, well, when we talked, we were going nowhere, but we were just research and development phase. Now we're going to market in 9 countries. It's pretty cool.
wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
I didn't realize it was up to 9.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting journey. I know we will get into it, but the interesting part has been that once we went through that initial phase of, which is I think when we were last talking, is we think this is going to work. We're not sure if this is going to work, but we think it's going to work. So we've got this validation process to do and complete, which we did. And then after that, we started running pilot programs and trialing it. And it just was beautiful. It just was exactly what we wanted it to do. And then the clinicians started off being like, no, this can't be right. And then they went from this position of, so it's just like this big arc they go through. It's from incredulity, can't be, it's not possible, can't be real, can't work, to, it sounds interesting, to, I think I'll try it, to, I've tried it, I love it, I want it. And that is different for every person with regards to time frame, but everyone starts at the same spot and ends at the same spot. We haven't had anyone yet use it and go, oh no, I don't think there's any value here. They've all used it and gone, how do I get it? Which is why, so it's good.
Wow. Is it Fisher's diffusion of innovation curve? Is that what it's called? It just seems like that's the exact trajectory, right? Like it's like initially, what's wrong with the status quo? We don't need it. And then you get your super early adopters and then it kind of takes off. Kind of similar to iScribe, right? Like our transcription stuff, we kind of also have people going, why do we need AI? We've got residents. Yes, we should train people through medical school to write notes because that's the best use of their skills.
I mean, when we did our intern years, I think you and I are all same vintage. I don't think we had EMR. I think we actually.
We had to stack the papers up on a trolley and wheel them around.
Yeah. Do you remember the old chart trolley?
Yeah.
Oh,
exactly. Gotta get up 6:30.
And
load up the chart trolley. There's always one set of notes missing, and you're like,
in order though, your consultant was like, you're good resident.
No, but remember, if you had the folder with the spare progress notes and the drug charts, and then you had that ready, and if you had a stamp, you were like the super organized resident because carrying paper is the sign of a good doctor.
Yeah, straight to training program, buddy. You know how to.
Yeah. It's like he knows how to organize paperwork. Well, that is the key skill.
Okay.
Yeah, you may have 9 thumbs. We don't know. Straight on.
Yeah. So that
so I got to say, with OrthoDx, what was do you remember that moment between, when you were sort of doing the validation stuff
too? Always here.
Oh yeah, this is
I have already
something.
paused it.
Oh, I think I might have.
Just
But I was gonna say, Anthony, like, do you remember that moment between validation to, oh, this is actually something, to
Oh yeah,
actually start moving? Like, do you remember what that was like?
yeah, I do. I remember it quite distinctly. I threw in my entire training program. I basically quit training. It was that strong a moment. So
Mm,
you know, as we were talking, I was saying this is probably going to work, but you don't know. And then
yeah.
you kind of think, well, I'm not sure. And we'd run our validate. Well, we were in the middle. Actually, we were in the middle of our validation trial through Australia. So it started off. I think if we talked about it last time, it started off just in Queensland, and then became
mm,
a national validation program. And then after that finished, so this is sort of circa I want to say late 23, early 24, maybe early to mid 24. It's a bit of a blur, so I can't quite remember. But then there was this window of time where we actually just said the validation looks good, but we're not sure if it really, really works. So we took 50 of our kits. So we'd manufactured the kits and built everything on already. We took 50 of our kits. We gave them out to 50 random surgeons in Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, South Australia, and just went, just use it. Don't tell us anything, just use it. And they did. And then all the results came back. And so we were blinded. So we didn't know what was going on. All we knew was we've got a synovial sample. We ran it on our test. It gave us a result. We didn't know if it was right, wrong, or whatever. We gave the result back to the clinicians and we just waited for them to say, oh, yeah, actually, that's really good. In all 50, it was bang on. And we were just like,
wow.
this can't be right. And so we then set up this UK pilot study, which we're about 150 patients through. And again, it's just bang on. We were just like, holy shit, we've done it. This is real. This actually is real and it performs perfectly. I think the thing that made me probably most excited, most confident to just bail on a very well established and very rewarding career path was to look at this and go, this works. We know it works. We know we can make material differences to people's lives and outcomes. We can use that information to help improve patient care and save the healthcare system a lot of money. So let's just go. Let's just go with that and just go.
So that was your. So you know that this is a real company now because you've had the Harvard dropout moment. You that was the Harvard dropout moment, right? Like you're in the training program and you're like, no, I'm gonna bail on this. So you
Yeah,
did. You have followed in the footsteps of Gates and Zuckerberg.
yeah. Except I think I finished uni. I don't think they did.
Yeah, no, but different thing, like finishing, like once you're in
Same,
med
same,
school,
but
yeah,
different.
finishing uni is
Orthopedic
not the
University.
same.
Sure. No, it was interesting though because as we were going through that process, there was a couple of really interesting case studies that we did. There was one that was an awesome patient, which was our probably one of those really big aha moments, particularly for a lot of the clinicians around us, because what we had done is we had done a longitudinal capture of a patient's response to treatment, which no one's ever done before because no one ever could. Because you can't use
Mm-hmm.
CRP to measure a
Mm,
patient's response to an antimicrobial therapy or a surgical intervention or a debridement or an explanting or whatever it is, you kind of just have to broadly just kind of guess it and take the patient's how do you feel into the betagram and use that as your sort of true north metric. But because we can monitor the immune system in real time and we know it works, we had a patient that had a megaprosthesis. So it was a tumor patient that had, I think, a distal femur and proximal tibia with a hinged knee in the middle. And, you know, this patient was sworn black and blue by all the other sort of physician specialties saying that, no, it's metal on metal disease, it's metallosis, it's inflammatory, it's not infectious. And the surgeon that was a good friend of ours was doing the case. He's like, oh, I want to use your test. I was like, go for it, take it, yeah, have it free. I used it, and he initially returned the highest infection score we'd ever recorded.
Oh.
And he was like, I'm not sure if this is right. And I said, that's okay. Test it again. You haven't done anything. If the patient's getting worse, the score will go up. If they're getting better, the score will go down. He's like, okay. So a couple of days later, he tests them again. Score went to the new highest we'd ever had. And he was like, this did exactly what you said it would do. So I'm convinced it's infected. So anyway, he takes the patient, goes and does the explant, starts them on cefepime and vancomycin, and puts spacers in, antibiotic spacers, and all this sort of stuff, and gets in there, and there's a bit more pus hiding in pockets than he originally saw on aspirate. Visually confirmed that the test was right, and then starts him on this pretty rock and roll antimicrobial therapy, which you guys know has as much chance of killing the bug as it does of killing the patient. So anyway, we measured them again after 5 days of therapy, and they'd gone from a score of like think it was 115 to 10. And then another 7 days later went from 10 to 3 or 2 or something like that. And basically had achieved a microbiological cure. And no one had ever mapped that. And so that was a really cool moment for us where we went, man, this thing's got some serious legs, which is great.
I'll just kind of summarize all that, because if there is non-medical people listening, there's a lot of jargon that kind of just went out. So firstly, just to summarize the test itself, it's looking at, if you say have a swollen knee, is it because you have arthritis and it's swollen because it's just rubbing against it, or is there an infection going on? So historically, we stuck a needle in there, sucked it out, cultured it to see if there's bugs growing or crystals growing, if it's out, or it was just inflammatory sort of stuff, right? Like it's just swollen. So this test basically is a blood test. No, so you don't have to stick a joint.
It's still a synovial test at this stage.
Okay, it's still a synovial test at this stage, but it's looking at the gene markers to differentiate. So instead of waiting, because if you're trying to suck it out and grow it, you have to let the bugs grow before you can detect it. This one is, so it's basically speeding it up by going, okay, the body is responding, because the body responds by increasing and decreasing your genetic markers. That's how it produces all the stuff. And it's looking at that. So it's an earlier version of being able to diagnose things, right? And what Antony was saying was, giant metalwork case basically means someone who's had a lot of metalwork. So it's not just one joint. It's like tib, fib, and femur. Is basically all the long bones of your leg have been taken out and been replaced with metal. And when you do that, the body gets a swelling sort of reaction anyway, because that's a lot of operating. So you get a lot of swelling, and it's sore, and it's hard to tell. Is it an infection, or is it just you've just got a lot of stuff and you moved it around and it's not right? And how do you tell the difference when it's that sort of a thing? Because there's a lot of places where infection can hide, and there's also, but it's also just a giant piece of metalwork in your body. So how do you go about knowing? And this was one of those things where up until now, you've kind of had to look at the patient and go, I don't think they're a bit sick, because there's been no real way. Like you can't do an x-ray and find these microscopic little pockets of pus or infection. And that little description in more technical terms was just going, hey, we've mapped out an entire process where there was all this metalwork. Patient wasn't quite right. The test was saying there's probably infection. And then judging on using the test, the surgeon went and had a hunch and had a look, operated on the patient, and actually found that there was infection. Right? So that's just amazing. But just in the non-jargon version of things, I think was that a good summary? Or
so the easiest way to describe what the tech does is, and it sort of goes back to the first principles of when we first built it. It was the two things that guided me at the start were whatever the solution is going to be. We didn't know what it was at the time. Whatever it was going to be had to be new, because if it was going to come from the existing literature, we should have found it by now. Because there's people way smarter and way more capable than I am at research and science that have been looking for a long time. And so whatever we found had to be new. That was the first principle. The second principle was the immune system generally is always right, because you get, in your case, Raffy, you get the flu. Your body knows what it is. It knows how to respond to it. It knows how long to respond to it. It knows what exactly to turn on and turn off to make that response effective. And then it also knows that once it's achieved the response it wanted, turn everything off so you go back to normal. So I know that there are unique situations with autoimmune diseases where that's not the case. But generally speaking, if the body's pretty good at knowing what's wrong and how to fix it, and we wanted to find something that was completely new, that's what's led to this process. And so you're right, we just mapped out the body's immune system and how it talks to itself, because it uses genes, it doesn't use words. Well, I suppose it's words to them, right? But it uses genes, and that's the language. And so we mapped that out and figured it out. And now we have this solution, which is just phenomenal. It's awesome.
You know what this reminds me of? Have you seen, there's this little clip, right? Because, what are we? 15 minutes in and we talk about AI. Woohoo! We've been trying to time to see how, there was this little clip where they have two phones with two, Claude and Gemini or something, right? And it's the Google Assistant calling a restaurant, and it's like, hey, I'm an AI assistant and I'd like to make a booking. And on the other side is the pretend restaurant, which is one of the other ones. It's like, oh, I'm also a AI. Should we change to this other version of things? So it's just beeps and bops that obviously speeds up. Right? Yeah. And so it just feels like, so we've got the immune system trying to talk to each other, and we've also just, your startup's basically discovered it's oh, are you an infection? I don't know. Let's switch to the other language, and it just communicates in the beeps and bobs, and you've discovered the beeps and bobs language.
Yeah, it's true. It's literally how it was, because when we found out that the body's immune system turns on a really distinct infectious response, which has nothing to do with the inflammatory response, and it also does a really unique inflammatory response, which has nothing to do with the infectious response. They are really, really potent systems, but once the body turns them on, it kind of turns the other off so it can focus on that. And so we found that they up and down regulate each other. And so we built, similar to AI, we built a neural network. And that neural network is the thing that is the language model, I suppose, if you want to call it something, that deciphers what that conversation is and how the body's talking. And it's like saying, Raffy, don't you do anything because you're inflammatory. Chan, your infection, you do all the work. And when you're done, you hand over to Raffy, and Raffy goes and does the cleanup. And so it's like that. And so basically that's what we sort of discovered and figured out. And it was just so cool to see. It was really cool.
So in terms
One
of
thing
this
you
more
mentioned was like it being, has to be something new. That's always interesting. Like obviously, no need to give away your secret sauce, but it is quite interesting with startups and things. Often there's a why now sort of aspect of things, where often there's something has changed.
Yeah, we've had that question a few times, and the easiest way to answer it is, look, I didn't do anything that was particularly clever. I just looked for something in a space that no one had looked. That was good. I suppose that is clever in a way.
And it is a newish kind of space as well.
Yeah, it is. But the thing that was really clever, which was not us, was that back in 2001, I think we talked about this last time as well, the Human Genome Project had mapped out the genome. And so someone, without the computational power that we have now, had gone through the painstaking misery of mapping out the entire human genome. So someone had laid that foundation, and now it was just up to people to sort of go, well, we have this dictionary, I suppose. Let's go look at what the words mean. And so we went and looked in a way that we developed and obviously created some ways in which to do that, which are novel and interesting. But the thing was, if we didn't have the dictionary, we didn't know what the words were. And if we didn't know to look, we wouldn't have found what we found. And then the other thing that we found that was interesting was that in the time between when that was done in 01 and now, so say in the last 5 years, the iterative increase in computational power to drive a neural network like that. Because can you imagine, you're back in 2000, you've got your Dell, Intel, grades trying
to... It's 2001, right? So it's 25 years.
24 years, yeah, 24 years.
Yeah.
You can try and run a language model on that machine. Fuck no. The iterative change in computer power, following Moore's law, I suppose, was such that we now had the dictionary, we had the meaning of some of the words, we knew where to look for some of the words, and we had a computer processing capacity that was actually powerful enough now so that instead of a program running, with an estimated completion of 300 years, 400 years, it was doing it in weeks, which is phenomenal. Without those things happening, all these, discoveries and things that people do are iterative. I believe that you can't have something without someone else having done something great, and then you can leverage that and do something awesome with it. And that's what we did. So that's really good observation, Chandra. It's it's pretty spot on. It's exactly how it happened. Was that the thing that was different this time was that we had the processing power and the dictionary, which we never had before.
So the interesting other thing that this is like a random tidbit. You know how AI models, everyone's like AI, basic unit of AI is basically the node, right? Where it differentiates, like, is it this or that? It's like, think of it as a binary signal gate, right?
It's a switch.
Yeah. So do you know when the very first time that was deployed was?
No, I have no idea.
In the 1950s, the perceptron was created. So
really,
is the algorithm that has been optimized. So the entire thing is just a reloop of that one algorithm from the 1950s called the perceptron, right? And it was an entire cabinet, like, what you think of as a server rack. So that's what it was. It was, you fed it paper and it spat it out. So this is what I learned at Stanford, is like the perceptron algorithm is not new. It is from the 50s.
Crazy.
It's the same thing. It's just you can iterate so that, as you run the neural, the loop, each epoch, it just kind of maps to the data more, and you can just do it a huge number of times more. And that's it. But you're right. Like, this is something that's like 60, 70 years old.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, PCR, the reason we changed over to PCR from next generation sequencing was because when we were doing NGS, at the time, the sort of turnaround time for next generation sequencing was somewhere between sort of 8 weeks and 6 months. And, you always both know clinically that's not very helpful.
Not so useful. Your patient is dead, therefore the test is very accurate.
But you know why. You're
at the funeral, the patient's been dead.
Because you were arguing with your colleagues as to which one it was. You can be
right. What it was. No, but we wanted to take, so it's an awesome research space, and having the depth and breadth of read that you can get in an NGS platform is phenomenal. But then being able to take that and deploy it rapidly, you want to use PCR, and PCR has been around since 75? Again, it's 50, 60 years of computational and chemistry science that's led to this sort of stuff, which is cool.
It's interesting because it reminds me of very side tangent of just because the Nintendo Switch 2 came out, right? And like the entire history of Nintendo has been taking off-the-shelf stuff, recombining it in different ways to make it something new. Like they're the only console company that makes a profit on their console. They don't sell it as a loss, right? Whereas every other one kind of crams in all the tech and try to make it later. And it feels kind of like that. It's like someone just hasn't combined, like accelerometers have been around for ages until it came to the Wii tennis. What revolutionary? It's like it's been in your phone, it's been in everything, it's been in your pedometer. Like no one had thought to combine it like that. And this kind of feels like that, where it's like, well, we've got this tech, we've got this algorithm from like the 50s. We've put it together, and now these are all the other use cases that are coming out from it.
Yeah, it's good because we can apply our methods now to every area of medicine, and that's what we're going to be doing once we've got OrthoDx to a point where it's an understood and almost a self-referencing test where people go, oh, it's just like that test. Then we've got neuro, we've got plastics, we've got renal, we've got peds, we've got all the different subspecialties. Because one of the things that we discovered in the process of building this thing was that I think one of the issues that we kind of got caught up in when I was doing this years ago was everyone thought it was one solution and one system that did all things. But what we've discovered is that each thing that you're looking at, each substrate, whether it's synovial fluid, urine, blood, CSF, tissues, whatever, they each have their own unique language and their own unique immune constructs that work in that environment.
Okay.
And the way we discovered this, again, was by accident. So we took synovial fluid, we took blood from patients at the same time. And when I ran the next generation sequencing and ran the algorithm and built the neural network, I thought, I'll just find the same genes in blood that were in synovial fluid. We ran the same neural network. We got completely different signature, completely different. And it worked the same in terms of its performance, but there was zero overlap. Not a single one of the genes that we found in joint fluid had anything to do with blood. Nothing. Could be as far as
I can
imagine.
Fair. Well,
yeah, it was weird.
Well, now that you said it, you go, of course it makes sense because I know you. But like before you'd said it, yeah, like it's one of those things that I think you can only say it makes sense in retrospect because it's like synovial fluid obviously doesn't have red blood cells and this, that, and the other. So how could it have the same gene markers? But then at the time you go, well, isn't the blood communicating all the stuff? So it was a valid hypothesis.
Yeah. So the white cells in serum are different to the white cells in joints, are different to the white cells in the gut, different to the white cells in kidneys and urine, lungs. It's just all different. It's amazing. So
and it's quite cool because the whole genetics area is new, and so there's a whole bunch of things now to map out. So it's sort of this
that's true.
Interesting new area.
Yeah, but I think the thing that we did, which was quite interesting and unique, was the fact that we found a way to figure out the signal to noise ratio. Because when we were doing the NGS reads, we were getting, and you've got to remember, this is still a text file with, CATG to make each individual gene or protein or whatever it codes for. We pulled something like 4.2 terabytes of data out of about 400 patients. So like a gig plus text file, that's a lot of data. So we were doing that. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to differentiate the signal to noise. When we first started off, we had about 200,000 gene candidates that might have been good. And we got down to 8. So from 200,000 to 8, and that was through iterative improvements, like what ChatGPT does, between 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, whatever. We got iteratively better at finding what we were looking for and shrunk it down so we could put it onto just about every PCR device on the planet. So it doesn't matter whether your hospital has the system we like, the system we use, the system we don't like, it'll still be portable onto that system. It just means you've got to do the work to manage the chemistry. But that's how it works. So it was pretty interesting to see it all come together. It was really cool.
Okay, so since our last chat, like, I mean, you had some pretty random tales back then. Since then, what's been something unusual that's changed the direction of OrthoDx?
So
What's the highlight? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I'd say governments.
Governments, okay.
The first thing that comes to my mind is
everyone's favorite.
Yeah, politics, right? No, it's been interesting because so I think I told you the story about me accidentally raising money and being asked to be the chief medical officer of a company I had never spent a day working for, and
Yeah, yep. That was
millionaire, billionaire, whatever he was. So a lot of our work that we've been doing in Australia got the attention of a lot of our colleagues in the UK, and so the UK has this brilliant thing called the Bone and Joint Infection Registry. And so that's this nested registry that sits inside the Joint Registry of the British Orthopaedic Association. We have one too in Australia. Australia will say ours is better. UK say, well, we started it, whatever. There's one.
Of course, ours is better. So
there's one in each.
Okay. Yeah.
But what the UK has, which no one else in the world has, is this Bone and Joint Infection Registry. And what it is a record of everyone that got an infection and what they did and how they managed it and what caused it, or if they can find out what caused it, what they did to treat it, whether some treatments worked better than others, whether some diagnostic tests worked better than others. It's invite only. We got invited to participate, and so we are on that registry now. And as a consequence of that, I met some people through my journeying ways in the UK as we were setting up the UK pilot studies, and ended up becoming friends with some lords from the House of Lords in Parliament. And a couple of months ago, I was giving talks in the Jubilee Room in the House of Commons.
As you do on a Sunday, it's like, oh, what were you up to?
Yeah.
Oh, I went to a barbecue. What about you, Antony? It's just giving some talk at the House of Lords, as you do.
Yeah, it was House of Lords, House of Commons, which is phenomenal. And so through those relationships and those conversations, we then got introduced to a lot of different people in the infrastructure of the NHS and the British government that have looked at how to deliver the election promises of improving NHS services, decreasing wait times, reducing costs, improving bed utilisation. And we happened to be Johnny on the spot that had this solution, and that story has sort of propagated out. And now, it looks like once the pilot completes, it looks like there's a pathway for us to have this deployed in the NHS, which is just unbelievable. But that was all just from random, just meeting.
That needs claps.
Yeah, it was so random, man. So, but this time, I could say, yeah, I definitely worked for the company because I did.
Yeah, well, it's your company this time.
No, it's mine.
Yeah, I work for the company. Wait, let me just check the name again. Yes, OrthoDx.
OrthoDx.
There you go. That's why you've got to have the T-shirt on.
Yeah. So, but it was pretty funny though because from those conversations, all of a sudden, this is the weird thing. So this is the part that I find quite interesting, and maybe it's odd, but I'm not exactly normal. The policies that the Labor government in the UK have put in place for NHS growth and sort of rejuvenation are almost, so Labor Party in the UK is a left-wing government, are almost the exact same policies that the right-wing government in the United States are putting in place to sort out Medicare and Medicaid with RFK. And it's like, hang on, how are you guys on opposite sides of the political spectrum?
You don't understand. One has a red hat.
You've got the same awesome policies. So
it's the hat, man. If you have the red hat, clearly you're on that side. And if you have the blue or green hat, you're on the other.
I know.
It's color theory, okay? Color theory explains this.
But it was awesome to see the overlap. It was so good. It's like, to see these guys having the sort of same ideas, the genesis of ideas from opposite ends of the world, opposite ends of the political spectrum. I just thought, wow, man, this is really cool to see. Like, it's that Delphi process of confluence of good ideas become good ideas, right? And they become the ones that stand up.
And I also just realized in Australia, the Labor Party is also red.
Yeah.
I always get confused when people are like left, right, Labor, Liberal. I'm like, wait, which country are you from again? That's the first question.
So that was one of the interesting things that I sort of noted, and looking at the way that the Labor government, I think the Secretary of State for Health, Wes Streeting, has got some really cool ideas about how he wants to reform the NHS and not just fix that aspect of it, which is the stuff that we can do, but also manage the community side as well. And I have to connect you with a friend of mine who's running an awesome company that sort of helps on the community side, called Sonda. He's a phenomenal guy. His name's Craig. I think together we could probably increase efficiency in the NHS by at least sort of 10-15%, which doesn't sound like much, but when you're dealing with
that's huge.
30 million ED visits a year and you're dealing with 70 million people and you've got 6,000 hospitals, it's a big influence.
Well, I mean, considering in healthcare, 2, 3, 4% changes are huge because it's just, percentage times a big number equals really big outcome. Like that's, I mean, I think the interesting thing that I found in all this is that, government is no one's, like, if you walk around, no one's going to go, oh, politicians or government, that's our best friend, right?
Yeah.
They do no work. And here you are going, yeah, you've met the people. And they're genuinely trying, right? It's like very hard to steer a giant ship, which is more of a Chandra analogy, I suppose. But it's like they are actually doing stuff, right? Like we just don't see it because it's big and complex and it can't always be distilled down to like 4-word slogans. But it sounds like
all we see is the Twitter fights instead. But it sounds like people are actually doing something. Has that changed for you, like in terms of your view on what politicians are actually doing in healthcare?
It has a little bit.
Or do you still think there's a little bit of still not a lot happening?
I think the issue has always been bureaucracy. It's not. So this is the thing that I think people find sometimes challenging to understand, and I struggled with it for a long time, is that the bureaucracy itself is not the politician. So I don't know if people necessarily understand that, but for example, when we started talking to the NHS, we weren't talking to Wes Streeting, we weren't talking to a politician that managed this thing. We were talking to the bureaucracy that sits underneath to actually run the system. And the bureaucracy, they've got these great ideas of how they want to make things happen. But then if their ideas don't line up with a policy promise or they don't line up with a policy objective, even though they're great ideas, they can't move forward because they're not the elected officials. And by the same token, the elected officials might have a great idea that the bureaucracy says, there's no way we could do that, man. That's not going to work. And so that's the problem where you have this sort of meeting in the middle of, does the bureaucracy support the politician? Can the politician's ideas get executed by the bureaucracy? Can the bureaucracy's ideas be supported by the politician? And a lot of people don't see that part. And so
what's the analogy? Like, as in when you're saying, there's the politician and the bureaucracy, right? What exactly is the bureaucracy there? Is there an analogy? Is it like saying, is it like a wartime sort of general says go do this and the troop says that can't be done? Is that, or?
It's literally like, think of it as like the infrastructure, like the chairs and desks and things like that is the bureaucracy. So I think one of the probably the poorest ways I can use this as an example is if you think of a car, as always, you've got the engine, which is the bureaucracy of the actual machine. So without the engine running, the car won't.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yep.
But the politician's got the hands on the wheel to drive it into whatever direction they want to go. But if you want to try and...
Clearly not a Tesla.
No. But if you want to try and turn it around, say you're doing 100 kilometers an hour and you want to do a U-turn at 100 kilometers an hour, the engine and all of the chassis and all the components underneath are going to say, that's a really bad idea because we're probably going to crash. And so then that feedback has to come back to the driver and say, what we should do is slow down, find a point to turn, and then accelerate again. And so one of the issues is if you get too many layers between the engine, which is the driver, the bureaucracy, and the actual steering, that communication gets muddled. So one of the cool things that they've done recently is they've dissolved the NHS bureaucracy and management to put it back into the control of the ICBs, which is what's the I stand for? I think it's the internal care boards or something like that. But the care boards that run each of the different locations for, say, Wales or Northumbria or Newcastle upon Tyne or whatever. So they've decentralised it out of that central bureaucracy back to the local guys on the ground saying, you guys know how to do this best. These are your patients in your areas with your systems and your hospitals. You run it. And that's a great idea.
This is like, you're saying this and Victoria's going the other way at the moment.
Yeah.
So
More.
At the moment, yeah, because like there's obviously this tension, right? Because at the moment, Victoria has like if you're a small hospital, like a small regional hospital, I don't know, like 50 beds or something, if that, right? You have your own board, your own thing, and there's like yes, you know how to run it best, but of your funding, a certain amount has to go to running the board and running all the meetings and all that stuff, right? And you can't actually service everything like that your community needs because you're too small. So the government was trying to form larger groups so that you don't have service duplication, like you don't have like a board for this bit that can't actually fully service the population, so you conglomerate into something slightly bigger. So it's interesting, like things bundle and unbundle at different levels, and you just have seeing the NHS going down the decentralization route, we're going down the centralization route, but there's efficiency gains at the edge case for both things. Like that's what I find fascinating is that if you go too granular, you also lose efficiency, and if you go too centralized, you also lose efficiency. So there's like this little middle spot where it's like the Goldilocks zone.
I think they've
You've
done
been
great.
sort of deploying across lots of different countries as well. Have you found it sort of a different, I guess, approach or things in different places?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. One of the things that we've seen is that each country we go to has a different sort of hierarchy of needs of what they need, of what they want. And so some want, reduced wait lists. Some want to just get people out of the hospitals because the hospitals are running at, 160, 180, 200% capacity, which everyone sits there and goes, well, how can you have double the capacity of, a hospital running? It's like they just stick people in corridors and stick people on chairs. And I mean, you guys know what it's like in those overflow scenarios. But interestingly, a lot of the Southeast Asian stuff has been about managing access and capacity more than it has been about waitlists and costs. Whereas the UK is about waitlists and costs. New Zealand, they're about waitlists and costs. Australia has its own unique challenges where it's more about throughput and capacity. But as an interesting metric, we look at dollars saved and bed days saved. And so the good thing about the UK scenario is we've got great data on that because A, we're running pilots there, but B, they publish the data every year. So you can just look. So you can jump onto the NHS website. You can see for the month of March exactly how many emergency presentations happened at Norwich or Sheffield or Colchester or Exeter or wherever you want. And so with that information, knowing what the pilot data is revealing as we go through with patients that can be safely discharged versus ones that need to be admitted faster to be cared for, we know that we can probably save about 6.5 million bed days to the NHS. And they love
Wow.
And we also know that comes with a savings of about £4.5 billion. They don't care so much about that. And that's something that I found a little bit sort of counterintuitive. It's like, well, but you're getting money back. Like, why wouldn't you care? No, we would use that and deploy it elsewhere to improve other areas of services that are flagging. But the problem is we can have all the money in the world. If we don't have the capacity for bed days, we can't do anything because you're blocked. And so I was like, oh, okay. So talking to NHS and the government and understanding what their pain points were, it became obvious to me that the bed days are the thing they really care about. And that's great because we give them a lot back. But then if you look at Southeast Asia, they really care about the throughput and reducing the cost to the system because they have a fixed budget of how much they can use, which is not like the UK's sort of almost limitless budget, but it has a number, but it sort of gets topped up all the time. Whereas Southeast Asia is like, look, we've got okay capacity in terms of overflowing, but some centres that have only got the capacity to service this type of specialty requirement, they are the ones that need more throughput. They're the ones that we want to get more bang for our buck. And so those are the locations where they're looking at a lot more aggressively than other locations for the bed day savings reason, that's been really cool to see all that transition over time. So each location is like a brand new relationship and a brand new sort of set of needs. And you just kind of have to be adaptable and just say, all right, Chandra might want me to have more bed days available so he can do more lists. Raffy might sit there saying, I've done enough lists. I want to save some money and have an extra day a week off.
Yeah. Weirdly, that's exactly where we both are right now.
Yeah. Like, how do we go from 4 days off a week to 4.5 days?
Sudoku needs to be played.
Yeah.
So I thought we've talked a lot about OrthoDx and everything, but since our last catch up, a lot has changed in your personal life. You've gotten married. Congratulations! And where's the soundboard? I need the soundboard. we need claps and cheers.
You're
you know?
almost missing out on an opportunity to use the soundboard.
Yeah. And you're a father now.
I am, yeah. We've got a 4-month-old.
Sorry for the delays.
Amazing.
How, like, in your personal life, those are pretty, like, one of them is a big change, two of them is a huge change, and then it sounds like you're hitting that sort of inflection point where, you know, the graph is going up and to the right with OrthoDx, right? How have you found managing it all? Like, we talked about balance and everything last time, and you had some tips and tricks. Has that gone right out the window? Something new, something different?
Like,
yeah.
You know, what do they say? Best laid plans.
Yeah.
I think some good life lessons I've picked up over my 43 years now is probably one of the most important decisions you'll ever make is who you marry. And I waited a long time to find the right person that was a good fit for me. And I am very, very fortunate that my wife is an absolute weapon of a woman. She's honestly one of the most capable and intelligent women I've ever met in my life. And so having her as the other side of that equation as the teammate has made this much, much more easy for us, because if I have to do something like, so what are we in now? We're in June. I've done, I think, 5 or 6 trips to the UK already so far this year.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's tough with a newborn. So she's just, no, it's fine. I got it. You go and do the thing you need to do. So I go and do that. Then I come back. And then I've got horrible jet lag. So you sleep, I'll do the night feeds because I'm up anyway, right? So I'm not going to be asleep. So I'll just feed him and do the dream feeds and whatever. And so we kind of support each other where I can give a bit more, I give more, where she can give a bit more, she gives more. But to be honest with you, we've had such a dream run with this little boy. He's just such a phenomenal child. He's so chill, such a happy baby. It's been great. It's been glorious. It's the best thing ever.
Have you found, like, you know, as like, I just realized that I've gotten married since our last chat as well, but we obviously don't have a kid.
Sorry?
Yeah. No, when you're saying that, I was like, oh, actually, some of those things also apply to my wife, because it's like, I'll just, you know, a bit later in the year, I was telling her the other day, it's like, I might be doing some stupid strips, and it's like, does this involve you visiting Chandra's boat? I was like, yep. It's like, okay, this year. You get, like, do whatever you want.
And there's like a bad influence that I just got a boat instead.
But, you know, like, I think something came out. I just saw this good deal. Like, I'm flying to Singapore in, like, first class because it was super cheap on points. Like, so I just booked it for a weekend trip. Didn't have to tell her, and she's like, totally cool. Know that that's the sort of thing you're gonna do. Go nuts, right? And it's so nice when it's it's easy, because they kind of get, it's like, that bit is just you're just gonna do it, right? Yeah. Like, there's no point in trying to argue against it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, like, I was kind of really feeling that as you were talking about it. Yeah. But the other part of it is, like, have you found, because I can only imagine, like, I only have cats, but, you know, I look forward to coming back from trips and, like, just chilling out with them. Like, how have you found that? Has the satisfaction from what you get from work changed now that you have a family, or has it enhanced or taken away from? Like, what's that dynamic been?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the thing that caught me a bit by surprise was when I had to do my first or second trip, I think, after he was born. That really sucked. Getting on that plane and sitting on that plane was just like, I really don't want to be here. I really want to be home. But then I thought about why I was doing it and what I was building and why I was building it. And I thought, no, I've got to see this through and keep this mission going. And then getting back, you know, the first thing you do is family hugs and everyone's there, and it's phenomenal. But that being away is quite tough, particularly if you're quite invested. And, you know, everyone's different. Like, some people, you know, take different roles different times in parenting and stuff like that. But I've always wanted to be quite hands-on, and I have been, which is good. So I really miss my wife and son when I'm away. But, you know, there's short trips, there's 7-8 days, which sucks. Oh my God, it sucks. But, you know, when you get back, they're there and you're back home, and you can spend a couple of days. And, you know, I don't mind doing the nighttime dream feeds, because I've missed him for 8 days and my wife needs to sleep. So she gets to sleep and I get to sit there and just talk to him and feed him, and it's great. I get some father-son time, which is nice. Yeah.
Do you think things have changed a bit in terms of, I guess, how you approach different problems with OrthoDx as well, especially from time-wise? Because, like you said, you kind of want to not be away as much as you can.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we got to this inflection point. So, like, one of those old things where, you know, you try and plan your life as best as you can around the milestones that you want to achieve in the time frame you want to achieve it. And honestly, when we last spoke, I thought we'll get maybe one, maybe two countries. It'll be sort of a slow, gradual ramp up, and it'll be fine because I can manage my clinical obligations and my clinical role with my business CEO role with my family time. But what I didn't plan for was 9 countries at once. So I didn't plan for that. And so, you know, sometimes you just get the curveball and you just have to swing. And that's what we've done. We've just gone, right, well, we're going to have to hit it and hit it as hard as we can. And if it's going to suck for 6 to 12 months, but we'll all be fine at the other end of that. And we'll have the ability to have a bit more stability in life once we've gone through that accelerated growth phase. We didn't plan for it, but when it comes, you certainly don't say no. You just take it.
Have you found any sort of things that work well for you for balancing a bit more home time?
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that I've gotten is a really, really good travel routine. I know this sounds super boring, but
No. This is like,
everybody
my eyes are lighting up.
So I usually go QF1, QF2. That's just the lap all the time. So I'll spend as much time with Millie and Alex as I can before I go to the airport. I'll get to the airport kind of late. So you're supposed to be like 2.5, 3 hours before an international flight. I'll be there 90 minutes before. I'll pre-book the parking so I don't have to worry about the whole, where am I going to park, what am I going to do? Chuck the car in, go to the check-in desk, check in, straight to the lounge, sit down, have a meal, have a decent-sized meal. And then what I'll do is, on that first leg from Sydney to Singapore, I'll just work the whole way. Because one of the cool things, which people get quite angry about, is that Qantas does not have Wi-Fi. They're international.
I love that. I love that.
Right. It's 8 hours of no one can bother you.
One of the last few places that you can get some stuff done.
By the way, they're getting it from next year.
I know.
Oh, no.
I know. I've asked them not to do that, but there's like, no, we need to do it. But so for that window of time, basically I know I've got 8 uninterrupted hours of study. I list out and map out all the things I need to do. I work all the way through, get to Singapore. The only time you get internet is when you go to the lounge in Singapore while you're waiting to have the plane refueled. I've got 20 or 30 emails queued up. Sit down, open the laptop, connect to the Wi-Fi. They all fly off. Again, have something to eat. Then I'll get back on the next leg. I'll sort of stay up. Sometimes I'll watch a movie. Sometimes I'll just listen to a podcast or read. And then I'll sleep for a good 8 or 9 hours for that next leg. Because I know that as soon as I land in London, it's arrive at 6 a.m, through customs by 6:30. I've got my bag. I'm in the car by 7. I'm at my first meeting by 9. And it's just flat out the whole way through. And then on the way back, just try and sleep as much as you can because I don't get myself on my bed.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, good. That's a good routine. Because I was loving it because I did the Melbourne, Perth, London, and back recently.
How did you find that?
So I booked it slightly weirdly.
It's the best because it's through Perth.
Actually, weirdest randomest thing, right? So when I booked it, which was months and months and months ago, and I don't know what the hell I was doing, I think I just went with the cheapest version of things. Yeah. I didn't realize I had a 6-hour layover in Perth.
Oh, yeah.
So as I landed, I kind of was like, what? Like, normally it just continues on. And there is a flight.
It doesn't look like London.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. It must have been much cheaper. I don't know. Like, this is for a conference, right? So I texted Chandra because I was like, hey, do you just happen to be in Perth? And he had just left. I thought he was
like the worst timing ever. I left like half an hour ago.
Yeah, right? So I was like, oh, man. Right? And anyway, so I was like, what do I do for 6 hours, right? So just as he says, yeah, no, I just left. Let's talk about something, right? One of my friends from Melbourne just happens to just walk past. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing here? And he's like, yeah, what are you doing here? So then we just end up catching up for a little while. And I was like, maybe these 5-hour things you bump into people that you know in airports, and it's another sort of random chance encounter. We just managed to catch up and see her like twice a year. So I was like, one of those times was randomly walking around an airport in Perth, of all places.
Yeah.
To answer your question, it's kind of similar to, QF9 goes from Melbourne, obviously, but we landed half an hour early. So we landed at 4:30. in Heathrow. Yeah, it's meant to land just past 5, but
Whoa.
at that hour, no other flight comes through. So it took me 11 minutes from the plane
To get through
to the train because customs isn't even open, right? And of those, 3 of the minutes, I was just wandering around because I thought I was in the wrong area. Doors were open, but there was no one there. And then the security lady's like, no, come on through. And I was like, there is no line.
Wow.
So it was like the random thing that happened was because I'd gotten out so early, I could take just the local train, take an hour to get into London.
Yeah, it's cool.
So like, well, I wasn't gonna go for a walk around, but I've got 4 hours now to kill before my next flight.
Yeah,
and it just so happened that my brother was working in the office, and his office is around the corner from Tower Bridge. So I just walked across, and we had a coffee, and like had plenty of time to just hop back on the train, get back to the airport. So. Yeah, it's like the timing of it kind of works depending on what you're trying to do. Like you get like a half day in London if you've got other stuff to do in the afternoon.
I've always been a bit nervous about that flight because it's something like 17. Is it 17 hours or 16 hours?
16 hours, yeah.
That's a long time to be in a plane, man.
See, like you, I don't plan out work per se because there's not so much I can do as an anaesthetist on a plane. Most of the stuff.
Yes, you can. You can look for work.
Not without Wi-Fi, but the thing that I use long flights for is, I don't know what it is, but being at the literal 10,000 feet mark makes me very reflective. So I actually collect a lot of journaling prompts. Yeah. And so I just go through one after the other. So it's like after every long trip, I usually have action points on what I want to do with life or calendar or this or that, because you literally stare out and you're like above the clouds watching the world go by. And that's been like, so before any long trip, I'll collect like an entire page full of just journaling prompts to just think through. Like I'll just read one, eat a meal, or just sit there because you can't do anything else, right?
No, that's the problem.
I used to cycle back and forth between those two, actually. One was to clear the inbox because you're like, oh, this is great. No one can, because the problem is I find if you start replying to emails, you're like, I'm going to clear my inbox. And then people start replying back and you're like, no. Whereas, if you're disconnected, it feels good. You're like, all right, it's disappearing. And they will get sent off, like you said, when you land. And also, it's a nice planning, reflective time. But lately, I've found my brain has trained itself so that literally as I sit down, the flight's taking off, I fall asleep. Yeah. And I just seem to wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Oh, okay.
I like that time warp capacity when I do the second leg, because at least for me personally, because I know I've done the work that I set out to do, it's kind of like I have that feeling like, okay, now I can actually relax and sleep. And I don't really drink anyway, but I never drink on the flights because you just get so dehydrated. So I just have, lots of water and pass out and wake up in London and away we go, which is fun.
Yeah, I feel like this is like the biggest jib because I don't drink, obviously, being Muslim.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like there was one time where they were like, we've got this fancy champagne. I'm like, I have no idea what normal champagne is. Yeah. Like, and they offered, and everyone's like looking at me going, how are you not drinking this? I'm like, I have zero idea what this is, right? And I can't drink it anyway.
You should put it in a bag and take it home with you, all right? Bring it for me.
It's like people were like, you could see people were super excited. It's like, and then, actually, when I was going to San Francisco for the sabbatical, for whatever reason, I got an invite to the chairman's lounge, like, the super fancy. Yeah, right? It's nice. So I go in, and everyone's like, you have to try the wine. I'm like, don't drink wine. Like, it's supposedly some, and it was there. It was like in this case that looks very opulent, and it's meant to be some super fancy. I'm like, this is all just wasted on me.
Yeah, it's
You're like, can I have some crackers? And you'll find us water.
No. I was like, look, the hard stuff for me, Coke Zero, thank you very much.
Yeah. No, it's really good. It's funny though, because obviously I'm flying so much, I know all the staff on the plane. So it's funny because when I get on, I've got, there are other people flying that are just like, all the staff are like, oh, hey, Dr. Rapisarda, it's so great to see you again. And they're all just like, who is this guy? Hey, Lee, hey, Samika, how are you? Great to see you again. Will you be going back to Friday as usual? I was like, yes, I'm going back Friday as usual. Okay, well, I'm on that roster. I'll see you on the stories. You stand with 2 cans of Coke Zero and a bottle of water? Yes, please. Okay, great. It's great.
Nice.
It's a lot of fun.
A couple of more random questions, if you like.
Perfect.
So one thing was, clearly this sort of journey throws you totally off balance, right? Like, as in, I don't know what like you're obviously trying to balance it as much as you can. But is there something that you've recently taken up or recently started spending more time on, even though it doesn't make any sense? And the example I'll give is this, right?
Yeah.
So I only remembered this sometime earlier this year, which is years and years ago, like back when I was in primary school or high school. I just remembered going to myself, if I ever stop playing computer games, right? It's really time to stop and think, I distinctly remember this day. I was playing something and I was like, man, if I ever stop playing, because my parents were like, why do you keep playing computer games? Da, 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 the usual kind of ethnic parent thing. And I was like, no, I really enjoy this. And I just remember going, if you ever stop playing it, just stop and think, like, are you doing stuff you enjoy or are you just working nonstop, right?
Yeah.
And so as a result, I've actually started scheduling in time to play computer games. Like last night, whilst I was like working on like just looking up stuff for this podcast, I was like, nah, I'm going to play computer games for half an hour. It's not the same anymore because there's other stuff. And I'm actually playing like, it's just on the phone because I got like a little controller for the phone, so I can kind of just play it on the go. It's called Dead Cells. It's basically a hack and slash, right? Button smash a little bit, and then it's the thing that it definitely does not have is a long story because I'm a sucker. Like I have to then finish those games, right? So it specifically doesn't have that, but it's just enough to kind of go, oh yeah. But what I find is that is engrossing enough that mind turns off, and then you come back, and it's actually weirdly refreshing in a stop thinking kind of way. So that's my little example of it. Is like it doesn't make any sense because it's like I feel like you get to the point where you start working on things that you enjoy. You know, the natural sort of negative feedback loop is you start doing work and then usually you get sick of it because you don't want to do it. But then if you just happen to be lucky enough to do stuff that you enjoy, like we could do podcasts all day, right?
Yeah.
And there's no stopping. Like Chandra was coding till 4 a.m. He just loves this stuff, right? And so and it's like, well, OrthoDx and like, whatever. It's like you almost, the natural feedback loop is to keep going to the point where you break, right? So is there something, have you recognized this in some way, capacity, and is there like something you've put in that is like, this doesn't make much sense, but I'm going to do it because it's just for my own sanity in the long term. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you're right. If you do something that you really enjoy, and I really enjoy what we're doing with OrthoDx, I tend to work. So I've been working 7 days a week for 6 years now, and it's fine. It's not a burden at all. I love doing it. I can't imagine not doing it. I don't know what I'd do with a weekend. But so what I've always enjoyed doing is I do like gaming. I think I've been playing the same computer game since 2010. Every now and then.
Which one?
StarCraft 2, mate. Yeah, it's
classic.
Nice.
Old. It's not
favorite.
So I was playing Total Annihilation when I had that thought back in primary school. Yeah. So same sort of RTS genre.
Yeah. So it's 15 years old now, and I'll get to play it maybe a couple of times a month. But the thing that I really enjoy, so I love spending time reading to my son. It's really, really cool to watch him as he's growing up and getting more alert and more awake. We've got the Gruffalo and all those little books that he reads. And he'll just sit there just completely locked in, just like, oh, these pictures are cool. And I'm listening to Dad speak, which is great. The only thing that I probably still do for me that's a bit of a sort of blow-off valve, pressure release is I'll still go and take my car to the racetrack.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but I mean, man, if I get to do that 5 times a year, I've done really well. Like at the moment, I think I've got my second track session of the entire year in a couple of weeks. But besides that, it's just spend time at home with Bob and watch him grow and sort of try and read to him as much as I can and just get involved in that. It's just that's for me as big an unwind as doing anything else, which is really cool. So, and when you guys have kids, like you'll love it. It's such a rewarding thing.
Does it get you the unwind? Like, do you actually turn off? Yeah, okay, because like that's obviously the thing that I don't know, and I don't think you can know until then.
Until you're there,
no, because that's good to hear. I mean, it's also just like this was going to be another question. You kind of already answered it, so which is kind of like so 2 parts to it, which is one is everyone kind of says before kids like you thought you didn't have any time, but you had so much time, and when you have a kid, it kind of optimizes it to the next level, almost like it's a forcing function to try and figure out, the efficiency part of it. And the other part of it is like, there's that stereotype that hardworking people are always neglecting family. It's, I don't there's plenty of examples. Like we have friends who are very hardworking, who are really involved as well. And it sounds like it is possible. It's almost like having the cake and eating it too. It sounds like it's hard work, but
Yeah,
would you say it's possible? Like it is
yeah,
doable? Or?
it's definitely doable. I mean, everything's about how you structure your time. And so I think, I'm not sure if we touched on this last time, but the way that I think about what I do with my day, it's not about the list of tasks I have to complete, it's about the time allocation for them. So my life is mapped out to time blocks, not to task blocks. And so all you do is you just figure out what you need to be able to be functional, right? So you need to eat, you need to exercise, you need to sleep, manage and optimize that part. And then everything else is just how you put together the Tetris of your time blocks. And so one of the things I can say is I've wanted to be a parent for a really long time, and having gotten there now, it's like, yes, finally I get to go and do stuff. And so I actually, really prioritize the blocks of time when I'm home, because I'm away so much, right? So, if I'm stuck in theatre operating for 14 hours, I'm not at home and I'm not with him and I'm not with my wife. But when I am home, as long as I've got the time allocated to do the tasks I need to do, everything else, it's just like, cool, let's go play. So we have bought an inordinately large number of developmental toys. We've got the big muscle mat. We've got all the squid with all the little rings on it, and we've got all the books, and we've got all the cool things that we play with. So we just spend all of our time just playing with him and just talking about what we're going to do next with him, and how we're going to, move our life to incorporate our desires of what we want to do with him. And one of the things I think my wife and I both made a very strong commitment to early was that we both said we're not going to change our lives just because we have a kid. We're not going to suddenly be stuck at home. We're not going to be able to do anything because we just have to be stuck in this little bubble with this child. Obviously I can't walk at the moment because I've just had my knee done. But, in the mornings, we get up. When he wakes up, we get up. We go to the park. We take the dog. We throw the ball around. We talk about what we want to do for the week. We talk about, how we're going to spend time doing what our objectives are. So we have that nice husband and wife connection time in the mornings. Play with him. I'll walk around the house talking to him or singing to him or showing him his face in the mirror. She'll have a shower and get ready. Then she'll take over. Then I'll have a shower and get ready. Then I'll go do work stuff. She'll go hang out with him and do sensory class or mother's group or whatever. And then, I'll come back and then we'll do more fun stuff together. It's just about picking what the priorities are of what you want to do and then allocating the time in to do that. I must say, one of the things that's been a big change for us over the last sort of 12 to 24 months has been the team around me has grown. And so having the team that we have now, they're just so high functioning.
Are we talking about the business or family or?
The family's phenomenal. I mean, my wife's an identical twin. So we
okay.
have an identical twin sister and brother-in-law and nephew and all that sort of stuff, which is phenomenal. But then having the team in the business around me who are each as motivated and driven to get this job done means that if I hand you a task, for example, I was like, Raffy, I want you to sort out, all of the logistics around supplying this hospital in this location. I know I could just walk away because it's done. And I don't have to go like, oh, Raffy, how's that going? And, oh, no, don't worry, I'll do it. It's like, it's just handled. And so every part of the business, the business, the science, all the scientific reporting, the new product development, each of the people in those different roles and those different environments, they're doing such a cracking job. It gives me more time to do the high level, more visionary stuff and also spend the time at home with the family, not thinking like, oh, I've got to go and clean up after all these people because they haven't done their job. They've done a phenomenal job. And I just get to sit there going, right, this is the joint. I'm steering. They're the engine. I'm steering. This is where we're going. And I'm on cruise control right now because we're on a straight bit of highway. I'm going to go and hang out with my little boy and my wife and just chill. It's good.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like having that sort of the ability to delegate properly means that you're kind of like enjoying time at home, which means that you're happier, so that you're probably a nicer CEO for them to work with. In terms of like you're steering, you're not driving angry. Let's just say.
No. I think one of the best things
I think it works quite well in a lot of settings as well. It's just that ability to delegate and being good at delegating is quite useful because
it's a hard skill to master, particularly when you've been doing it yourself for so long. But one of the things that makes it super easy is that I always set myself this goal. When we bring new people on, they've got to be better than me and they've got to be better at what I want them to do than I could ever be. And having those people and being surrounded by people that in each of their individual sectors leave me for dead, It's like, awesome, I am now the rate limiter, or I'm now the lower value part of that chain. And so it gives me the ability to sort of sit back and be like, holy shit, that's a really clever solution. I wouldn't have thought of that. That's a really good idea. So
Nice.
it's good to you have to have that trust. But once you hand people that responsibility and let them do what they want to do, and once you see them run with it, the trust comes, and it's so easy to see that sort of grow and progress. And you start to look at the bigger companies of how, Amazon and Google and all those big organizations built their teams out. It's by having those more capable than you people leading and being smart enough to stay out of the way and say, so my chief technical officer is a brilliant Russian scientist, actually. He looks like bloody Colossus from the X-Men. Huge guy. And he's like, this is what I want to do with this product. I want to change this part of the formula, and I want to adjust this chemistry and do all that. And it's just like, cool, man. Just tell me if you need me. Otherwise, go for it.
So you basically have Andrew Huberman on your team.
Yeah, and he just sorts it out. And it's just like, great. And then our CIO, we need to sort out all of the digital reporting and optimize all of the, digital pathways for how we take the genomic chemistry information and turn it into a score and a diagnostic probability and a likelihood ratio and all that sort of stuff. He just sorts it out. All right.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. This is more, I thought we would sort of finish out the podcast with a couple of more, 10,000 feet sort of things. As you said, you're launching in 9 different countries. You get to see sort of patterns, right? And we were talking about just before we started recording that this is kind of like the capital H history moment that's going on. This is the stuff that textbooks will be written about, just everything that's going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
Right? And Australia being in its spot, it's a bubble just by geography. Not that you want to be, it's just far, right? So we have our own problem and we're thinking about it and we're seeing all this stuff happen, right? What are, this can be either business, it can be politics, it can be just general society. What are the main differences you're seeing between Australia and the rest of the world right now?
I think from a business and sort of science perspective, I would say that pound for pound, on a per capita basis, we probably are some of the best innovators in the world. And some of the stuff that's come out of Australia is just it's breathtaking. It's just phenomenal. The intellect and the vision has just been phenomenal. But where I think we fall down a bit is that once you get out of the R mode and you want to get into the D mode, there's just nothing there. And I think that's a function of being a young nation. I think it's also a function of having a paucity of understanding about what some of these sorts of spaces are like in terms of how you measure and categorize risk.
And just to put a pin, just R is for the research part and D is for the development front. So it's like taking an idea, researching it, and then making something out of it. That's the R and D.
Yeah, so I can give you a good example of that. So at the moment, we're just finalising our application for an FDA breakthrough. And so that has been a really, really interesting and exciting and very academically and intellectually fulfilling process to be part of. We've had phenomenal consultants from the US that have helped us build this R&D application for the FDA to get breakthrough. And if you get the breakthrough designation, you get an automatic federal contract with the US government, and all competitors for that claim of what you're asking for get locked out of the market for 5 years to allow you to get in and grow. So there's nothing like that in Australia. It's a phenomenal program. But again, by the same token, if, thankfully we don't have to, but if we were raising capital in the Australian market, we would have to take that information to the Australian, investors and say, this is what we're going to, and say, we go fast forward, 4 months from now and we've got it. This is what we got. It's a phenomenal thing. And they sit there going, but we don't understand. It's not an FDA approval. It's like, no, but it's a quarantine market for you that's guaranteed. And they sit there going, well, we don't understand what that means. And if you took that to a US investor, the US investor would be like,
eyes light up.
Holy shit, that's amazing. We'd love to support you. We'd love to grow with you. But the Australian guys would be like, I don't know what that means. So therefore, I'm not going to assign value to it, which means I can't mitigate risk from it, which means I won't be able to help you grow your business, which means that effectively all of the good stuff that we build here inevitably goes overseas. And I think I'd like to see that change in my lifetime. I don't think it will, but I'd like to see it change because some of the ideas that we've had out of this country are just unbelievable. That's been a big observation. And then, all the same pressures are the same, like growing pains, the same issues around housing affordability, workforce diversification. Do we have industries? Do we have, all these different services? Like, how does that all work? Australia is probably better positioned than most because we have such vast natural resources. But if you're in the tech or science or digital space, you just don't have that depth of understanding of what that means if you achieve a significant milestone where someone goes, oh, wow, that was really cool. We know what that means. That's really valuable. We're going to take that and value that. And so, there's a great example of a company on the ASX at the moment called Telix.
Oh, yep.
Phenomenal company, amazing company, Melbourne company. They struggled to get TGA until I think last year maybe. And in the meantime, they've done 1.2 billion of revenue in the US.
Is that all?
I mean, phenomenal story. And meanwhile,
so instant unicorn, but yeah.
But besides CSL, probably one of the biggest, med tech, health tech space success stories of this country. The people locally are like, what do they do? It's like, oh my god!
So like when you're TGA approved.
And you guys are going to go through this with iScribe if you have to go through that regulatory pathway. It's just painful. If you've got to do the software as part of the TGA approval, the TGA has been challenging, but a lot of people have got very, very definitive and polarizing opinions on what the TGA can and can't do well. We probably won't go through the TGA ever again with any future products. We'll go through IVDR or FDA because it's probably easier for us to just get a reciprocal approval than it would be to try and battle the TGA to understand why these great innovations are really valuable to the Australian population. We've only just now gotten our special access approval for TGA in Australia. We submitted to the UK MHRA and the TGA at the same time. It was at the end of 23. Approved in the UK since March 24, and we've just got special access in Australia now.
I think that's why most people sort of, unfortunately, in Australia have to go outside.
Yeah,
and then it unfortunately becomes like an afterthought to come back.
It's tough though, because the other thing as well, which we sort of touched on earlier, is that Australia's 2% of the global market. So that by default means 98% of all the revenue you could make or all the markets you could access are not here. And that means that you're gonna have to go to them, right, to get that to happen, which means you're strapping in for anywhere between 15 and 24 hours of flying time every time you want to do that. And whilst digital meetings has made it more efficient to do the middle management stuff between the first intro and maybe the signing of the contract or the cutting of a ribbon or whatever the case might be, you still got to get there. And so the only downside of Australia, as much as we do a living here and we won't leave, if I want to do something, like say I want to go and speak in the House of Parliament in the UK, I'm on a plane, I'm 24 hours over the ocean, I get there, I've then got to go and set myself up, get to the hotel, clean myself up, go into Westminster, and it's not, I can't just roll down the road to, Martin Place and go and see the New South Wales Parliament.
Do you think, so question I didn't have before, it's like, there is this trend towards supersonic again, right? Like with Boom and X59 and, right? But like, this is like a flow on of a flow on. So let's just say that happens. It's going to be incredibly expensive, but at least Boom, so for those who haven't heard, it's a startup that's based out of California, I think. They're trying to commercialize their very own, so they're doing it from scratch, supersonic engine that doesn't have a sonic boom. So ironic name, considering boom is not what they want.
Yeah.
Right. And NASA has done an experimental flight engine called the X59, which is going on test flights, I think, in the next couple of months, which also is doing a slightly different tech. But again, it's to get rid of the sonic boom so that you don't break all the windows if you fly over land. So that was like the limiting step, which does mean that I think they're both designed to go at Mach 1.5, which is about nearly 2.5 times the current speed. So it's like from here to London would be like 8 to 10 hours, something like that. So it opens up a lot of the world for this sort of fast transit, like what you're doing. if you took away the tyranny of distance, right? Like this is like, obviously this is not any sort of predictions, we're just making stuff up. But do you think Australia just suddenly becomes a way more attractive market or a place to stay whilst you run your business?
Yeah, look, I think Australia's got a lot of attractive aspects to it. I think that if we had the ability to create a country where, so just to take a flight of fancy for a second and
Yeah. This is just
challenge your thinking. Imagine, for example, a place where we had broad access to cheap energy, and that as a consequence made high input manufacturing really cheap and effective in a geographically and politically stable economy, which could be the science and tech centre, the banking and finance sector, and the manufacturing centre of Southeast Asia or the Asia Pacific region, and then have the ability to export the things that you build here, because we've got the space, to anywhere around the world. You could see this as America 2.0 if you had the population base and the skill base to do it. The problem is that until the steps are made to create a competitive advantage from that aspect, Australia is always going to be a beautiful place to live, but an expensive biscuits. Island prices, right?
yeah.
You're paying island prices. But once you get, if you could ever find a way through government or some other means to make that happen, man, could you imagine, what this country could be with the vast abilities and opportunities that sit here? I mean, wow.
The thing is, it's like if you look through history, right? There's been, I feel like a couple of things to echo is like, yeah, having spent some time overseas, I think that you're right. Like the stuff that we do here is actually world class. We just have a big sort of case of the tall poppy syndrome. Like I went to Stanford, they do exactly the same stuff. They just market it better. The example that I had written down is like the day I arrived, someone had called in sick for a course they were teaching. And so they had to write a little spiel for me to get introed as the new instructor. And you read it and it's like, it's our esteemed colleague from like Australia, experienced with this, that. And like, I mean, I walked on feeling like a bit of a fraud, but then I looked at it, I'm like, nothing is not factual. Like I have been a consultant for this long. I have actually done all these things.
Yeah.
They're just promoting it in such a way that I feel like, I'm walking out with like sparkle fingers. Whereas here it would be like, hey, this guy's going to tell you some stuff, right? They just do the sell so much better, a bit too much for my liking, but we're kind of the opposite end of the spectrum where we don't want to celebrate our wins, whereas they really want to celebrate everything.
Well,
I do remember going there. It's almost like a learned behavior you have to change.
Yeah. Funny because when I was living in the US, I think I told you this last time, I was really nervous about telling people that I was a doctor and I was running this biotech company, because when that happens here, it's like, oh, mate, yeah, you think you're good, mate. Yeah, right. Yeah, pull the other one. Yeah. And then, but when I was over there, I never got any of that. I always got, oh my God, that's so interesting. How did you do that? How do I do that? I want to know how you got to where you are so I can try and do what you did to get to where you are as well. And I think that risk appetite out of America and that everyone's got their own sort of personal brand of, I'm Raffy, I'm, a really, really excited and interesting and there's Chandra, I'm ophthalmic surgeon and I've got this bloody awesome AI driven digitization of doctors' notes and scribes, this phenomenal product. He probably cop a bit of crap for it, but over there they'd just be like, okay boys, how did you do that? How do I help? How do we make this even bigger? And so I mean, that's the reason why, we're doing this FDA pathway and going through the US market in the way we want to do it, because we know that once we get introduced there, and we've already got, colleagues in upstate New York and Texas and Florida and various other locations on the East Coast that want to sort of help out with this as we move forward. But a great example of this was we hosted and sponsored the Australian Joint Infection Society's biannual meeting last year. And so this phenomenal infectious diseases professor, Robin Patel, she's this lovely lady who came out from the Mayo Clinic and started talking about all this great research she wants to do into using genomes and host response to determine the presence or absence of infection. She comes to Australia to give this talk with us as the sponsor who sorted it out, not only sorted it out, but patented it and are commercializing it globally. And she could have had one or two responses. She could have been like, oh shit, you've just basically invalidated my entire talk and the whole reason for me being here. Or the other alternative, which is what she ended up doing, was saying in the middle of, as she did her talk, I have this talk prepared. I'm not going to give the talk I had prepared because since I've been here, I've discovered that these guys have done the thing that we are trying to do. So let's talk together about how they did what they did and I did what I did, where it overlaps, and how we can make this whole thing become a mainstream idea in medicine. That's just American. That just Americans do that. They're like, you beat me to the punch. You've got all of the lines into market, but I'm not going to hate you for that. I'm actually going to support you and try and grow with you rather than think of you as a competitive gazump. And I just wish that there was more of that in Australia because we've got some smart people here, man. Really smart people.
That's really interesting because yeah, you're right. Because here it's like if you have similar ideas, you're a competitor, whereas over there it's like just execute the fastest, and then if you won, then I just jump onto your train. Like we don't have to keep
Also, it's
fighting.
just like, let's just make the pie bigger,
Yeah.
as opposed to I'm controlling my little slice here. Please
Yeah, I
leave.
think we've talked about this before because I think one of the things that was an interesting eye opener for me was that not a lot, all consultants in the NHS get paid the same. And it's a terrible salary, like they get paid horribly, but they all get paid the same. So there's none of that, oh, well, I need to tell, some other anaesthetist, or some other surgeons, for example, you don't want to work with that Raffy guy because, he's doing a bit too well as an anaesthetist and I want his bliss reduced to be so he's a bit more hungry and he gives me the service that I want. You know what I mean? Like, over there, it's just like, well, we're all paid the same. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same trench. Let's all dig together. And so one of the things that, I've seen is that sort of collegiate, let's all make it together. Let's make it the pie, as you say, gender, as big as possible. That's the way to approach it because, what's the ownership of some of those, big guys like Zuckerberg's got what 20%, 13, 14% of Meta.
About 100% of the voting rights.
He doesn't care, but because he made the pie so big that everyone did well, and we've done the same. We've taken investors on, we've taken shareholders on, we've made the pie as big as we can make it, and it's getting bigger by the day. And it doesn't matter if I progressively own less and less of the company because the pie gets so big. There's no way you could eat that slice in 1,000 lifetimes, let alone one. So
the thing is, on the flip side as well, though, Australia does have a lot of good things going for it too.
Yeah, it does.
And I think one of the dangers is like, if Australia goes down the US path, then you also get the US problems as well. Australia's take a lot of leave and go travel around.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose that part of it either.
No, we love it here. I mean, I had the option of relocating the family early on, and Millie and I sort of had a really good chat about it, and we just thought, you know what, we don't want those issues. We don't want to be in an environment where there might be risk associated with safety, or there might be risk associated with bad behaviour or nefarious intent. We want to stay here where it's clean and safe and comfortable and everything's lovely. And if I've got to eat 1,000 shit sandwiches by flying to the other parts of the world and schlepping for 24 hours of time, fine. That's worth it for us. And look, not everyone's the same, but for us, the price of that is worth it to be here.
So the interesting thing, like, remember during the first Donald Trump presidency, how you were like, I'm going to leave if he becomes president, and then hardly ever did, right? This time around, if you follow closely, there are big YouTubers that have moved to Sydney. There are actual celebrities from the US who are now starting up here, and the actual move is happening. And it happens to be to Australia, the Danish princess is coming to UNSW to study.
Yeah, correct. Right? Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, right. Like, I think Danish or Netherlands, one of like a European country anyway. So that thing where it's almost like not to glorify. Like I feel like America's got good traits. We should take the good stuff. I don't think I would ever be comfortable being so self-promotional like the US. But
I don't really want to, walk into places. Hi, I'm Chandra. I have 3 patents. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Introduction.
What do you mean? With medals and like a glowing halo and LED lights.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've talked about this before as well. It's like we should probably have a little bit more of like big dick energy. If you like, it was like we actually are doing some good stuff and we should be proud of it without getting too out ourselves. But at the same time, I feel like the thing that America probably did, or most of the other countries did, that's kind of is inspiring in a way is like their attempt at nation building. Like, they had the Great Depression, they built Hoover Dam, right? European nations have giant castles and whatnot that they can all point to and say, we all did that together, right? And years ago, this is like going back to the 70s or the 80s, there was this nation building idea of actually digging these river overflows and creating a food basin in the middle of Australia, like billions of dollars worth of development. Like this would change like the entire landscape. But there were these great ideas, and I looked this up not that long ago. There's actually a blueprint on the rivers you would divert to create like an inland sort of lake reservoir that then has like this entire thing, which would overtake basically all of Southeast Asia as the food bowl of, like, you generate a third of all flour, wheat, whatever. And we have all these ideas, and they're kind of just like, there was this point where we wanted to be this nation building sort of society, and then we kind of regressed a bit and we just went, let's just dig stuff instead. And I think we feel like need a little bit more of that.
Yeah, look, we probably do, but to be honest with you, the way things are set up here in Australia, and the beauty and sort of loveliness of this location is just one of those things where, you can't really put a price on that. It's just such a massive advantage. We know that, as our family grows and as kids start to go to school and stuff like that, they'll be going to school down the road. All of our family are here. It's easy for us to be around each other. And, there's other things that we'll be able to influence down the road with nation building and with, innovation and tech. And hopefully, companies like ours, companies like yours, companies like, Telix and a few others will build an infrastructure or a blueprint for how to do it. And then eventually, and this might be 20, 30, 50 years from now, might not be in our lifetimes, but eventually they'll come to a point where people will start to come here saying, that's where the innovation is, that's where the tech is, that's where the lifestyle is, that's where we want to be. And so hopefully that's something that we see happen sooner than later.
Yeah. Well, Anthony, thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat to us again. It's been wonderful just to catch up and just see what you've been up to. Any sort of last remarks for our listeners? Any pieces of advice that you could say that you've learned in the last 3 years that you've kind of either changed your mind on or thought, more important that I'm going to go over it on this part of it?
Yeah, I think the difference between success and failure is effort and trying, and not being afraid to sort of fail if you try something. I mean, we broke, God, how many iterations of the signature before we got it right. And, if it didn't work the first time, we would have just been like, it didn't work. But we kept pushing. And I think there's a lot of great ideas out there and a lot of great ideas that people have. Just have a crack. Just have a go. So it's the difference between action and inaction, which is what determines the outcome.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Any other last thoughts, Chandra?
Sounds like you're on a bit of a rocket ship and sounds fun.
Yeah, it's going pretty well. We're pretty pleased. And hopefully we can do this again in another couple of months, a couple of years. And, we can sort of talk about all the things that we planned to do last time, plan to do this time, and how it's all executed and rolled out. And I think if we keep going on the current trajectory we're on, it's going to be a pretty good outcome, because you're going to see better care for patients. You're going to see better efficiencies for hospitals, which will save them time and money. Clinicians will have better outcomes, which makes them happier. And because, we all got into medicine to do well for other people, not necessarily for ourselves. And if you can almost, kind of guarantee a great result for a patient, that's as good as it gets.
My prediction, this is just because it would be more entertaining. I want you to become the new Elon Musk. I want you to have a big breakup with some politicians in the House of Lords. And then I want to start off the next podcast with like the Twitter fight that's happened.
We're pretty friendly. That's the problem. We get along so well with everyone. It's hard to imagine that. I wonder if it's a good stage.
Yeah, I want the memes. You on the boxing glove with whichever.
Someone from the House of Lords.
It's a beautiful. If you ever get the chance to do it, they do tours.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. I mean, walking through the buildings have got the different coloured carpets. So the House of Lords is red, House of Commons is green, and you walk around the different parts of the building, and they've got all the old traditional coat hanging racks for your robes. It's just awesome history. It's just, if you're a history nerd, I'm a bit of a history nerd. It's just wicked.
Nice. Well, with that, thank you again for joining us. And hopefully we don't do it in another 3 years, or maybe a little bit
Do it sooner.
sooner.
Yeah, we should do it sooner.
Yeah. As always, for all our listeners, like and subscribe and share the podcast so that we can have more amazing guests and people come back and tell us what they've been up to. And until next time, catch you later.
See you guys. Bye.
So yeah.